Hey, what's up? Just milling down a piece of material to put on the lathe for an upcoming project. Enjoying our beautiful workbench here and enjoying a beloved tool of mine that I recently restored. This is a Sowerby Drawknife, fantastic piece of my collection that I love. A super effective tool. While I'm milling down this piece of material, why don't we take a look back at how I restored this lovely treasure. This is an antique Robert Sowerby Drawknife, and it is in pristine condition for the most part. The important things are in pristine condition. If anyone's not into old tools, Robert Sowerby is a lovely and well sought after brand. This Drawknife is certainly no exception. So here she is. It's got a nice heavy coat of rust and grime on it there now. Let's have a look here. The handles are going to be replaced. I'm not even sure if they're original handles. We're missing a pin here. This handle's loose and has some cracks in it. This handle, whether it's original or not, has a little nice little end cap here. These handles, why I'm not sure they're factory original, is that look how unesthetic they are. If you search up Robert Sowerby Drawknife on Google, you'll get some lovely shaped handles with real nice. I have another E. Broad & Sons Drawknife, and it has some lovely shaped handles. But these are just really plain. I just can't see factory putting it out like that. So those will be replaced. Rust is going to be cleaned off, and a new edge. Here's a cool thing. I believe this Drawknife has been sharpened very little. First off, it's hard to find these with a straight edge. Almost all Drawknives I find are hollowed in the middle. Big time, to the point where they're of no use. But this is a lovely straight edge. Just look how perfect that is. Sharpening shouldn't be too big of a problem. This is a lovely piece. Let's get to work. The one that was loose, I just pulled off easy, and we've got that nice big tang there that will clean up. This one is actually pretty, I can't even seem to turn it, so I'm going to have to take a hammer and try to knock that off. So this is that fresh edge. I didn't take it back that much, just as much as I needed to make it a nice straight edge. Now the back, some of you may not like it, some of you big time patina lovers, and I love a good patina myself, but I'd rather the Drawknife be just proper. So you can see that I don't have a perfectly flat grind. As you can see the light change, you can see the angles, see the light draw across the different angles. That's fine, that'll be easy to pull out with a bit of sandpaper or a whetstone. You see there's a nick here from probably the forging process. So that showed up there. That's fine. I like those inconsistencies along that black edge. And then here, even in this light, you can see that wire at the edge. If you see that bright strip right at the edge, just look at that. Flatten it right out. It's a beautiful look. Handles have been removed, and we're left with these two nice long tangs here. And we don't have the original handles. So what I have right here, a beautiful piece of Newfoundland birch, dried, set up here on the lathe. So we're actually going to turn our own handles. Now, I've only recently had access to a lathe. I've done a few small projects with it just as a learning process. It's been a lot of fun. I turned this beauty recently. This is a piece of birch. Actually, this came from a quarter of this junk I'm using here. But it's beautiful, really clean material for my 2-inch antique chisel. Isn't that a beauty? What a monster. So, using that same piece of birch, we're going to turn some handles. This is an E. Broad & Sons. This Drawknife was made in about 1890. It is a masterpiece, just a gorgeous, gorgeous Drawknife, but it's very fine, very thin, much thinner than the Sorby we're working on. It's more for a fine woodworking in my opinion. It has these original handles, which are beautiful, but the design, how they're put on, is pretty intricate for my skill level. So here's that lovely handle, and I'm trying to mimic this style. Okay, but you see you have a lovely little forged cap here. It's a little bit movable, but I can't imagine that would be very easy to make or forge. I'm not sure how these caps were made. I'm guessing probably hand forged. And then on the bottom here you have these end caps, also probably forged, and then the end of the tang is peened out here. I mean, it's just amazing craftsmanship, higher than I'm able to do at this time. So what I'm going to try to do is mimic this handle, and we're going to do a brass cap here, brass ring, which is pretty common from what I've been looking at online for the Sorby knives, so that should be a lot of fun. And then I don't think I'm putting the tang out through the bottom. I think I'm going to epoxy the handles onto the tang, which I think will be a just fine design, won't harm the Drawknife at all. I think it'll work perfectly, and if the time ever came that one of the handles broke off, you just easily clean the steel off the epoxy and start new again, so not a big deal. I think my idea will work. So back to the Sorby knife. To get this piece up here, I have a piece of brass, solid brass sink drain. It's probably 1/16 of an inch thick, and I will cut off little rings, and it will be placed over the ends of the wood, something like that. Maybe that much of it. Okay, so I've got a caliper here that belongs to Ray Bartlett that I'll be using to get that diameter perfect. So this little brass cap fits right over the wood. I'm excited. Let's get started. So I've got my heavy roughing gouge chisel here, and this is a pretty rough piece of birch starting off. Real rough. It's going to be a lot smaller than that. So the first thing before I do any measuring or marking, I'm just going to take it down to a rough, thick dowel, and then I can mark on it. I'm going to start it off real slow here. Make sure it's not hitting my wrist, and let's give it a try. So I've marked the length of the two handles here. So here's one handle, there's sort of a mirror image, and here's the other handle, right here. So, and here is where the brass will go over, a piece on each one. I've marked it in the middle. I'm using raised caliber here where I can measure the inside of my brass pipe, and then I can match the outside here where this pipe has to slip on over, and then it'll butt up against a ridge like so. So here we have two handles. This is where I'll separate them into two handles. But we have one handle here and another one here. And then I've turned down, I've left really rough transitions between it, because when you get in with a coarse sandpaper to start taking it down, that really rounds the edges anyway. So if I find if I round them with the chisel, if I try to round them nice with the chisel, when I use sandpaper they come even more round and you kind of lose that nice shape you want. Now here is a more refined product. You can probably see now too easily what makes up a handle. So here's where they'll be cut in half, and we'll have two handles right here that are about as close to identical as I can get them. Okay, so I just separated the handles. Let's have a closer look. Really proud of what I was able to accomplish here. We have two beautiful Newfoundland birch handles. They're pretty close, pretty identical. They feel lovely in hand, just nice. Here are the butts of the handles where I sawed them off, so I need to clean that up, of course. Still need to punch a couple holes, but just let me show you what the plan is here. Like I said, this is a piece of brass sink drain. See if I can give you an idea, if you can see how thick it is there. And just watch this. Do you get the idea? So you have that lovely piece of brass, and of course it'll be cut off flush with the handle, but it'll just look at that fit. That is a thing of beauty. That is something special right there. That took some pretty careful planning to get it to that point. That is nice. Now, for any of you that don't know, brass is a really soft material, easy to work with. So, check this out. I cut off two pieces, rough cut them with my bandsaw actually, with just a plain old wood blade. And now I'm just going to throw these on the belt sander and take them down just about to the wood, and then finish them on some sandpaper. So they're a perfect fit. Doesn't that look great? Now here's why brass is so nice to work with. It's soft enough that with just a bit of sandpaper you can file away at it, no problem. Just about there. Okay, after what seemed like quite a stretch of time, I have the handles drilled out to mount on this Drawknife. You can see here they both fit up nice and high, not extending through the bottom. Brass fittings are filed to length, they're just perfect. It was a lot of work and I battled with how to get holes in these handles probably about this deep without breaking out through the side, or I didn't get it perfect straight through, but it's definitely good. Plenty good for what we're doing here. I'm going to mix up some two-part epoxy, and that's how I'm fixing the handles to the Drawknife. What I'm going to do to start, I'm just going to pack as much of that epoxy down in there as possible. That'll get pushed down a ways when the tang goes in there. Just going to put a bit of epoxy around here for that fitting. It's a pretty tight fit, so it shouldn't need a whole lot. Just like that. And I'll get my fitting. The handles, the epoxy's set up wonderfully, super solid, completely immovable. I've taped up the handles because what we're going to do first here now is a nice, the final sharpening we say, and that takes a little bit of grinding, and grinding like that can get real messy, and with untreated handles and you got all that black metal being rubbed off, it can get everything in a state. Just that raw wood will take in that black grit and you'll never get it out unless you really sand those handles back down. So tape them up to keep them nice and squeaky clean, and we're going to get to work on sharpening. So I've got my emery cloth. I'd estimate this is probably maybe a 300 grit, maybe a little less. And if we remember the finish on that Drawknife, I'm just going to use non-directional strokes now, so just all over the place. You create a very mixy pattern in the steel, because just directional strokes are very hard to get out. You'll always see them in a final finish. So I'm just going to move around like so. I'm going to work the back of this Drawknife for a little while until we get a nice hazy finish. This is 2000 grit. Man, doesn't that look pretty. Hasn't been stropped yet. See the back side here, that lovely color, look at that. I'm just going to throw it on the felt wheel with a little bit of compound on the bench grinder. Man, just look at that. And that'll really set it off. Just look at that. Man, I love that so much. Nothing like a nice razor sharp Drawknife. You see how dirty those handles are there now. I'm sure glad I covered them up. I'm going to clean off this worktop and then we'll get to treating the handles. So I've got my edge taped up and I've got the Drawknife clamped here to the table. Now if you remember, those brass fittings were left pretty rough on the outside edge. So what I'm going to do now is get some good 400 grit paper, just some small pieces, and file it just like this. I'm not sure what 400 grit will look like. I'll have to wait until after I sand it down, and then if I feel like going finer I will, but I'm going to start with 400. And I can already see the 400 is going to be a bit coarse for what I want, so I'll go up in grit after this, but I'll clean it up with 400 grit first. Help me move along a little bit faster.
Yeah, brass cleaned up beautifully. That is 400 grit. Oh, what a nice finish. We are about 30 seconds from finishing this project. All is left is to treat that beautiful birch. I have some stuff chosen here. It's called Colonial Maple. It's got a bit of a reddish tone to it, which is what I'm looking for here. Are you ready? Try to keep it off the brass as much as I can. I can and probably will refinish the brass, touch it up, because I'm thinking this dye will stain the brass. I'm not sure. You know, brass is pretty soft, can be pretty finicky sometimes. Love that color. When I think of a classic Drawknife with that beautiful brass, this is the color I have in mind. The other one here. Now the very last step, what else but a little bit of boiled linseed oil. This is the finishing touches on all my wood products. I've been thinking about switching over to maybe Danish oil or teak oil or something. Are you ready for the final product? Here it is. Boy, am I proud of that. Maybe one of my favorite restorations yet. It just turned out in every way just better than I could have expected. I didn't expect to get those handles that identical. This brass was an idea. I was hoping it worked out and it would work out, and it just worked out phenomenally. The color on that birch, the edge, the sharpening. This is a tool to last a lifetime. I don't think those handles will ever move. The birch was real dry when I did it, so I can't imagine there'll be much change in it. Razor sharp edge. Very happy with this project. So flashing forward a couple months, here's our Sorby Drawknife, oiled up. It's been used plenty. It holds a razor edge, although I've touched it up a few times. That brass is not quite as polished as it was, but it has a beautiful mildly tarnished finish. I just love it. It's proven to be a lovely piece to my collection, and a piece I'm sure any collector or user would love to have. I've since made it a little more useful with the addition of a sheath. These are awkward tools, and it's hard to just throw them down somewhere. I believe in really taking care of my tools, so I hand stitched this sheath myself out of all genuine nice thick leather, and I just love it. Stays on there. I have a nice big welt. Just a phenomenal tool, and with this sheath protecting the edge, you can throw it in a tool tote or in a toolbox or anything like that and not have to worry about it getting damaged. If you're planning on doing any work in the woods, heading into the cabin or something, you could throw this in the box on the four-wheeler, throw it in your backpack, and you know it's safe. So that's it for this episode. Really hope you all enjoyed it. If you have any questions for me, you can head over to my Facebook page, Kyle Noseworthy _Weeder Fan, if you want some deeper content on this project,
or a whole bunch of other content of things I've done, head over to youtube.com and search up Kyle Noseworthy and you'll find my channel. Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in next week to the Newfoundland Hobbyist.